On today's episode, Wizards fans are celebrating because they will not have to cheer for Kelly Olynyk next season. The Wizards have traded him to the San Antonio Spurs. Let's talk about it here on Locked On Wizards.
You are Locked On Wizards, your daily Washington Wizards podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
DC family, this is Locked On Wizards, where you're part of our family. We thank you for making Locked On Wizards your first listen every single day. We are free across all platforms. Alongside DC Sports content creating savant and credentialed media member for the Washington Wizards, Abdullah, I'm Ben Strober, and I cover things, all of them, DC Sports for 106.7 The Fan and the Team 980. And today, just a couple of hours ago, we got the news per Shams that the Wizards were moving Kelly Olynyk to the San Antonio Spurs. The compensation in return, Malachi Branham, Blake Wesley, and a 2026 second-round pick, which will be the least favorable of Dallas, Philadelphia, or Oklahoma City. So essentially that pick is probably ranging somewhere between 53 and 60 in next year's draft. So it's not a situation where you're getting someone very, very early in the second round where you get the opportunity to steal someone that maybe just falls out of the first round. It's not quite that situation. But the Wizards do add two more former first-round picks to the roster here, with both of the two players here guards that were taken in the draft in 2022, 20th pick overall and 25th, respectively. And now the Wizards have a situation on their hands because it seems almost inevitable, Abdullah, that another move is probably coming, because the Wizards currently have 18 contracted right now. Obviously, the maximum 15. You can put 3 on the two-way contracts. Tristan Vucevic still is not signed by this team. Rashawn Holmes only has $250,000 guaranteed at this point, and he's on an expiring deal. So he seems like a candidate that either will get traded by this Wizards team or just waived to free up additional space. The Wizards also add an extra $13 million to use here through exemptions that are created through trading Kelly Olynyk here. So there are a lot of moving pieces. It's kind of a very confusing trade just at first glance, because there are a lot of things that are going on kind of like below the surface here with this move. And it's not just about the two players coming to Washington here in Branham and Wesley. It's kind of more about the future implications with another move probably pending here from Will Dawkins.
One thing for sure, I'm assuming well enough that Will Dawkins heard the noise from Wizards fans saying that they don't want Kelly Olynyk to play for their favorite team, and I think he knew the history between Wizards fans and Kelly Olynyk. And shout out to the anti-Kelly Olynyk fan club that are Wizards fans. You got what you wanted. Kelly Olynyk is not going to play a game as a Wizard, but thanks for stopping by. Kelly Olynyk, again, was part of that deal with the Pelicans, trading Jordan Poole, and now he's off to San Antonio. And I love the compensation that you get. Will Dawkins has shown clearly from the past trade with Cam Whitmore that he's willing to use second-round picks. A lot of people out there claim that second-round picks are useless in today's NBA, but when you have a really good GM in Will Dawkins, he knows what he's doing, and he's going to use the second-round picks to get young talent here on this roster. And I love it. I think adding 2 former first-round picks, just see what works, and then maybe if it doesn't work out here in Washington, they could get chipped off again. You use them. It's all about Will Dawkins, all these chess moves. And it's so surprising, Ben, that Corey Kispert's still on this roster. I mean, out of all freaking guys, this man is still the last one standing from the Tommy Shepard regime. And I still think his days in DC are numbered. But again, Will Dawkins really, really busy. First the Cam Whitmore trade, or first the Jordan Poole trade, the Cam Whitmore trade, and now this. And I think there's more moves to come.
Yeah, Kispert, I think, is someone that will be on the move at some point sooner rather than later. Marcus Smart seems like the easiest option here for Washington also to move before the season, because his contract is the friendliest at the moment for the Wizards to try to move on from, compared to a guy like CJ McCollum or Chris Middleton. I think those, given the contract situation, will be playing here for the Wizards, at least for the time being. Maybe you could see those guys moved around the deadline. The Wizards are also kind of freeing up more space here. Now they'll have like $35 million to work with, which might give them an opportunity, if they are able to trade one of the pieces they do have in place, to take on another bad contract here and get some more assets in return. That might be the plan that we see here from Will Dawkins. It's very tough to tell And just, kind of looking at the way things are structured right now, the updated Wizards roster, the only forward/center position people the Wizards have are Sarr, Rashawn Holmes, and Tristan Vucevic, who is now a restricted free agent. We have not heard anything regarding whether the Wizards are going to bring him back. I'm hoping they do. But at this point, maybe if you waive some of the players you have here, like if these two guys in Brainham and Wesley that come over, if those guys are waived as a salary dump thing, and then you're just doing the move for the compensation essentially, maybe that allows them an opportunity to clear some space and sign Vucevic to a full contract here. Because as it stands right now, the Wizards on two-way contracts would have Kadari Richmond, Martin, and then Jameer Watkins also on the two-way contract right now, the Wizards' second-round pick. So I'm not sure where the Wizards really go from this point, because the Wizards have 17 standard contracts right now, and then Vucevic still put in the mix. So there's going to have to be another move, because some guys are going to have to go. Kispert seems like someone that'd be an easy choice, smart to get traded eventually as well. But they'd free up a pretty substantial amount of money as well if they are able to waive Rashawn Holmes or try to find a trade partner for him, because he's partially guaranteed $250,000 of his $13.25 million salary for the 2025 season. So if he does get waived, this would give Washington some flexibility here with this log jam that they have. Maybe they could use that money to find a different backup center for a little bit cheaper they would add to this roster, because they really have nobody. You'd figure before this move is made, Olynyk maybe just slots in as one of your backup centers and he'll give you some minutes off the bench. But now that he's gone and you replace him with two more guards, you just have to feel like another move is coming here. And eventually the Wizards probably do end up with somebody else as a backup center, I believe.
I think right now it's the elephant in the room. The Wizards need a big man. I mean, we brought up the big rotation of Sarr, Holmes, and Vucevic. I think that could stunt Sarr's development if you go into the season with that lineup for the bigs. I understand you don't want to win as many games because you want that draft pick and you're having that glaring hole for obvious reasons. But if you're Will Dawkins, I think you're not done yet. You have to go out there and get that backup bet. I don't know who's available right now, Ben, because all the moves have been happening around the NBA, so we'll have to see. But I think definitely you need to address this right before the season starts.
So admittedly, I don't know a lot about the two players coming over here in Malachi Branham and Blake Wesley. I know that they are two competitive young guards that just haven't really shown a whole lot in San Antonio so far. So I don't know if it's a situation where maybe Dawkins eyes potential in any of these players, or it is what I brought up earlier where, it seems like you make this move and maybe you have one or two of these guys get waived and you clear up space that way. I'm not sure, because you did see that with the Oklahoma City Thunder when Dylan Jones was traded to the Wizards. The Wizards sent over Colby Jones and the Thunder immediately released him. And that was purely a move because of salary dumping for Oklahoma City. So I don't know if the Wizards are falling into that kind of situation right here, but it's interesting just because you add more young players to the mix here. Essentially, the Wizards have just overhauled everything and said, we're going to stockpile as many young players at similar positions that can play the 2 or the 3 here in DC, and to see how many we can get and try to figure out what works and what doesn't, what assets we can create through moving some of these pieces as well. I mean, because now that's 11 former first-round draft picks on this Wizards roster from the past 4 years now, I believe. That's the number there. So it's crazy. It really is crazy. And this obviously is a move that comes here first, probably with a bigger picture move happening shortly. I'm not sure if it's going to be one of these things where we see it happen either tomorrow or in the coming days or next week, but something else is going to happen. I'm pretty sure of that. And obviously they have to make moves because of the roster size anyway. So something will happen.
I think so. And hopefully it doesn't happen right when we're recording, because it would be a headache to make a video right after this. But I expect the big men to trade soon. You have a lot of players over the limit of 15. So we'll have to see. And again, I understand the direction of Will Dawkins here. You want to get as many guys as you can, young guys as you can, figure out the direction of this team and who's going to be those leaders, who's the future superstar here in Washington. You have so many options here. But at the end of the day, we can't lose the battle in the paint. We can't get out rebounded by so much every night. You can't lose the paint battle, and that's just something we'll have to see improvement of come the season.
Well said. Well said. One thing not trade related that we have to talk about today is that we got the opportunity to hear from some of our guys, part of the DC family. Trey Johnson, Bub Carrington, and the head coach of the Summer League, JJ Outlaw, all spoke to the media today following the final practice of pre-Summer League training camp. We got some pretty good reactions to some of the things we heard today. We got that next here on Locked On Wizards. Ever wish managing your money felt easier? With Monarch Money, it can. Whether you're growing your savings or planning a big purchase, Monarch puts you in the driver's seat. It's like having your own personal CFO giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money is more than a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So in addition to managing your money, you're also budgeting your wealth. One thing that was surprising to me when I started using Monarch Money was how much I was spending on food. It was unbelievable to me, and it was something that had to change. And once I had everything put in one app, I could budget exactly what I wanted to spend every single week. That's where things really started to improve for me. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com for half off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNBA for half off your first year. So the team heads to Vegas tomorrow with the Summer League kicking off on Friday, 9 p.m. Eastern Time. Washington takes on Phoenix to begin the Vegas Summer League. We are steamed up for that. If you missed our video from yesterday, we talked about how loaded this roster looks. And the likes of Bub Carrington and Trey Johnson included in a lot of discourse related to that video. Those two spoke to the media today. And it's been pretty evident so far, Abdullah, that Bub and Trey, the future backcourt here in DC potentially for the time being, they've already seemed to develop quite the connection thus far on a personal level.
Yeah, you love to see it. This is the future here in Washington. A guy in Trey Johnson who we're surprised that we landed at the 6th pick, and Bub Carrington, a guy who played all 82 games last year, game winner off the glass for the win, his last regular season game, a rookie that just put up record after record after every game. I remember seeing notifications every night as a Wizards fan saying, oh, Bub did this, Bub did that. So seeing those guys get along, it's very, very important. This team is very, very young, and I think they're going to be really, really fun to watch this upcoming year just because they're just so young and that chemistry is going to be there. And there's going to be a lot of hiccups, there's going to be a lot of bumps, but at the end of the day, seeing guys like Trey Johnson and Bub Carrington getting along right before the Summer League started, not even the regular season, is just a lot of optimism going into year 3 of this rebuild.
One thing we talked a lot about throughout the process of when the Wizards selected Trey Johnson and everything we heard from his high school coach, his college coach, and then Will Dawkins, who spoke to the media after. One thing they cited was the competitiveness of Johnson and how hard he works and how much he competes with his teammates around him. And one thing we've already seen this offseason, allegedly in practice, shooting competitions have taken place between Bub and Trey at almost every single practice sessions. And it's gotten to the point where they argue constantly about who actually won because those two are just competing with one another on a day in, day out basis, working on their craft. And I love to hear things like that because one, this kind of validates a lot of the things that we heard about Trey Johnson, about the way he competes, even with the people around him, trying to make himself and others better. And we're already seeing maybe some resemblance of leadership here for Bub Carrington that, you know, he's kind of taken Johnson under his wing as these two become the future backcourt here in DC. And they've already started to try to build this connection, this rapport with one another as they work on their shot, which will be such a, you know, pivotal part of the game, especially for Johnson here early on.
And that last time we had a backcourt with such chemistry was John Wall and Bradley Beal, and that was great. I know we didn't win and go to the Eastern Conference Finals or anything, but it was such a fun couple of years when they were both complimenting each other really, really well. And they were in that conversation of the top 5 backcourts in the NBA. And I think Trey Johnson and Bub Carrington definitely have the potential to be as good as them or maybe even better than them, considering the fact that both of them can be able to shoot it from three. I want to see Bub Carrington be more aggressive. I want to see Trey Johnson create his own shot, because the one thing for sure is Jordan Poole is not on this team anymore, and he was the one guy who can create his own shot. And now it's time for the young guys to step up. Can Bub Carrington make his own shot or go to the rim aggressively in games? Can Trey Johnson make his own shot off the dribble? We'll have to see come year one, but it's great to see already that these guys are hitting it off.
Another thing that came up in the media session today was the departure of Jordan Poole and his role as a mentor with this organization. And although Poole departed and, was not in DC long, just 2 lone seasons after coming over in what was a wild trade between Washington and Phoenix, Chris Paul. So now add Chris Paul, or add Kelly Olynyk to the list that Chris Paul is on it for people that were technically Wizards for, I guess, a cup of coffee, but never actually played here. But regardless of the point, Poole comes over and becomes a mentor for this organization, put his locker next to Bub Carrington. So our guy Chase Hughes was able to ask Bub Carrington on Jordan Poole's impact as a mentor. He said it's been crazy not seeing him in the locker room every day, and that Jordan Poole was a hell of a guy, not just a player. Really good dude off the court. He was at his house a lot, including right before he got traded. Those two were watching the NBA Finals together. So you could see maybe some of the emotional impact that's created with the departure of Jordan Poole. But Bub Carrington, of course, understanding that this is a business, and I think he's definitely happy that he's going to have an expanded role here in DC with Jordan Poole making his way out of town. But that's just something interesting that I noticed today from Chase's tweets.
I think the departure of Jordan Poole just opens up opportunities for Bub Carrington. Obviously, I love JP13. I wanted him to be a Wizard, but then the NBA is a business. Now it's Bub Carrington's time to shine. All those shots that Jordan Poole take is going to give the opportunities to Bub Carrington for him to open up, take those mid-range shots, those pull-up threes in transition, take it to the rim. I want to see him go to the free throw line more. So this opens up a lot of avenues, and it's a whole different regime here in Washington. It's not about Jordan Poole anymore. It's about Bub Carrington, Trey Johnson, Alex Sarr, Keyshawn George. The list goes on and on how many young guys you have on this team. You just added Cam Whitmore, who just turned 21. The future really, really is bright. And this team, again, I'll keep saying it's going to be fun to watch. It's going to be a lot of inefficiency, but one thing for sure is we'll definitely be watching every quarter of every game.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And if you keep seeing me look to my left over here, the Washington Nationals are on playing their first game without Davey Martinez and Mike Rizzo in control of the organization. So just a little bit interested that. One thing that we can actually talk about with the news that's happened to the baseball team in this town, Abdullah, is given how both these teams are technically in these rebuilds, it's got to the point where the Wizards actually have a brighter outlook right now than the Washington Nationals. Which if you would have said that to me 2 years ago, I probably would have told you that you're crazy, because we had a front office that was not proven yet here in Washington. Right when Will Dawkins got here, started to make the moves instantly to right the ship here in Washington and get themselves into the right direction. But now with the Nationals, who have just completely fallen apart, I think the Wizards have proven themselves with a much more clear direction, at least. You kind of have some sort of idea of where the organization is going. So I think that's just kind of interesting to note here, to tie it locally with what's happening with the baseball team here.
Yeah, right now it's tough being a Nats fan. I mean, the move of firing Rizzo and Martinez, I think it was inevitable at some point. We talked about it not too long ago. So for the Wizards, front office is looking bright. It's crazy to even think about a year ago or 2 years ago from today, we were thinking that the Wizards were the worst team out of all 4 DC sports teams. But obviously the Commanders are number 1 now with JD5. So the Wizards are on the come up, and just give it a couple more years. I think this team is going to be really, really competitive.
So let me put this into perspective here. If the Wizards got to a point where they were a perennial contender year in, year out, and let's say they have the same kind of success the Commanders did last year, and let's say both teams, hopefully for our sake, continue to have sustained success at the same time, do you think there would still be a wide gap between popularity amongst Commanders and Wizards, or do you think the Wizards would be able to close a lot of that gap because of how popular basketball is in this area?
I think the NFL is just too big for the NBA, Ben. I love the NBA. I love basketball. And not too long ago, they were talking about how low the ratings were. And obviously, Luka Doncic gets traded to the Lakers. So you think of what that means. But I think the NFL is just too much. They're in their own league. I think no matter how good the Wizards will be, the Commanders, especially how they're playing with a superstar quarterback in Jaden Daniels, they're always going to be the talk of the town. But if the Wizards are going to be good, you definitely will see the people coming back and hopping onto the bandwagon, and you'll see home games being filled with fans, and you won't see away players getting MVP chance at Capital One Arena because I'm tired of that.
Oh God. Well, think about it this way. When we had John Wall in his prime here, and he was the superstar of this town, the then Washington Redskins they were so bad that it was really easy for DC to kind of ride that wave with John Wall and the Wizards at that point, in those couple of pretty decent years that we had at the time. So it'd be interesting to see if both of them had sustained success at the same time, how people would feel. I know a lot of people who are loyalists of our podcast, and we appreciate all of you. I'd assume that you guys are probably bigger basketball fans than football fans, which, is completely understandable. And then that's exactly what a lot of people do believe in this town. Even though football is, king around the country, around the world, basketball in the DMV is just such an instrumental part of people's lives. And I could see why, people are so invested in this basketball team and have stuck with the Wizards throughout being in the mud for so many years and are sticking with it throughout the rebuild. So in the comments, if you are someone that is a all DC sports fan, whether you're supporting the Wizards and the Commanders or other teams, let us know how you would rate your fandom for each team. Just because I'm curious. I want to learn a little bit more about our listeners and see if, even though you are tuned into Locked On Wizards every day, if it's not even your top team in town or whatever.
Yeah, I want to know, if you're a Wizards fan and obviously not a Commanders fan, what football team do you support? Honestly, name the 4 major teams of baseball, hockey, football, and basketball. That's one thing. Anytime I meet someone new, I always ask them, because it's always interesting to see how people say, oh, I grew up on this team because X and X brought me into it. And it's like, I'm a fan of this team and that team. So it's always something interesting to definitely point out. So let us know in the comment section.
I knew a dude in high school, and he told me he was a Warriors fan. And I was like, okay. So, but for reference, when I was in high school, this is when the Warriors were a dynasty with KD. And he's from the DC area. He told me he was like a Nationals fan and a Commanders fan, I guess, which is crazy. And he goes, I like the Wizards, but I don't support them. I was like, what do you mean by that? What do you mean you don't support them? He goes, because they suck. I was like, dude, get out of here.
See, I hate people like that. The big 4 bandwagons, I think football has to be Cowboys. Basketball at the time was the Warriors, but I think nowadays people would say the Lakers. Baseball, you think baseball, it's got to be the Dodgers or
the Yankees.
And then hockey.
That one's a little tougher. Hockey
it is a little
bandwagons, I don't think. All right, well, you're sticking with basketball here as we move forward throughout the show. FanDuel released its projections for all NBA teams' regular season win totals. Where do they have the Wizards? We'll tell you next here on Locked On Wizards. Our good friends at FanDuel. Remember to download the FanDuel app, and you could get some bonus bets for yourself if your first $5 bet wins. But FanDuel dropped the NBA win totals for the regular season for each and every single team. And the Washington Wizards, as you would expect, are at the bottom. FanDuel has the win total set at 19.5. So that's a game and a half more than where the Wizards finished last year at 18-64. And for me, I'll start off right now by saying I would lean over and cautiously, because we know that this Wizards team is not in the interest of winning a lot of basketball games this year with that top 8 protected pick. But with the development of the players that you have here in year number 2, and also some of the other young talented pieces such as Cam Whitmore that you've brought into the mix here throughout the offseason, I would be hopeful that the Wizards are able to keep that top 8 protected pick and will do whatever it takes to make sure that happens. But I do think they win over 20 games. I do feel like there's going to be enough development from top to bottom that they win over that mark. But let us know how you guys feel below. Abdullah, what say you?
Oh, I'm smashing the over, Ben. At 20 games with this young squad, I get it. They're not going to be that good. In the Eastern Conference, there's a lot of teams that are better than them. But they're going to be a young team. They're going to have all that energy. I think they will be better defensively just because, again, I think more effort's going to be emphasized this offseason. I'm hoping. I think rebounding-wise, we're still going to get killed off the glass, but I think there will be some games where either Trey Johnson's going to be really hot or Bob Carrington or Alex Sarr goes off like he did last year against the Nuggets in Denver, and they ended up ultimately winning that game with Jordan Poole as game winner from deep. We'll see. It's going to be, again, really, really interesting to see how Ken Whitmore fits in this rotation. Justin Champagnie, a guy who I loved, and when he really friendly contract that you get, and we'll see if CJ McCollum is done. CJ McCollum can give you 20 a night. So Chris Middleton's also a guy who can help you down the stretch and be that mentor. So a lot of things will come into play, but I think all that being said, 20 games, I think it's feasible. I don't want to say like we're gonna be that bad to that point. We're gonna lose 15 games. It's a slight possibility, but I think year 3 of this rebuild, we'll see improvement in a lot of categories. I think one of those are going to be the win category.
Also, think about it this way. This Wizards team won 18 games last year, and during that season, they had 2 16-game losing streaks. Like, that's insane.
Yep.
If they go on a 16-game losing streak this year, I will crash out. That is unacceptable. They cannot lose 16 games in a row.
Can't be that team.
Like, even though you do not want them to be winning a ton of games, if you are in the business of keeping that draft pick, you do not want to see your team lose 16 games in a row. That's killing your development. That is terrible going forward. That cannot happen again. So they lost 16 games in a row twice last season, and they still won 18 games. So as long as that doesn't happen, I think they win at least 20 games. I think what I've been pretty adamant about throughout this offseason was that they win around 24 to 27 games. That's my mark right now. I'll set my over-under at 24.5 right now.
Yeah, I think 23, 24 over-under is 23.5 is reasonable. I think it would be a great season if you win 30. If you hit that 30 mark, that's fabulous. Obviously, we don't want to because, again, you want to get that draft pick for next year because there's so much talent in that 2026 draft class. But we'll see. This is, again, I love this Wizards roster where it is right now. We see the direction. We see the vision from Will Dawkins. And one thing I want to emphasize, I just want every game to be competitive. I don't want to see last year where, again, blown out by 60 by Indiana at home. You just don't want to see that. And, again, you mentioned it, 2 16-game losing streaks. That is inexcusable. I want to see every night you're diving on the floor for loose balls, hustling for every rebound, getting every 50-50 ball, being able to have an off night. Shooting, it happens, but being aggressive offensively. I want to see Bob Carrington be more aggressive and get to the free throw line. I want to see Alex Sarr put his back to the basket and make a move. So we'll see. I think it's going to be an exciting season, and it's not going to be that much winning, but it'll be fun to say the least.
Well said. Well, I guess the first season for the Wizards starts in just about 2 days. NBA Summer League kicks off on Friday. We are looking forward to seeing all of the young talent here in DC get another opportunity to play on the floor all at the same time. That's it for today here on Locked On Wizards. We thank you for making Locked On Wizards your first listen each and every single day. For your second, find the Locked On NBA podcast where there's no off-season. Doug, Matt, and Hayes keep you up to date on contract negotiations, rumors, and everything you need to know to be the most informed NBA fan. Find Locked On NBA on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. This has been Locked On Wizards for my co-host, Abdullah Yubi. I'm Ben Strober, and we'll see you tomorrow. Let's go Wizards.